Welcome to episode 13 of the E-Talk with Don, Brett, and Shri. And this week we deal with a word that sends a shiver down the spine of CPG leaders. And I've encountered it myself in the various years I've spent in CPG, and I'm sure, Don, you have too. But the word is crap. It's not what you think, but Don will demystify it for us in a few seconds. But that said, I do sincerely believe that while crap originally starts off as adversity for any CPG brand, it can truly be converted to advantage. So let me ask Tom the first question. Have you dealt with crap before in everything you've done in CPG, and is it really as devastating as people say?
Great question, Shri. I certainly have dealt with crap in my career. I think many brands deal with crap relating to Amazon. I think the majority of it, in my experience, stems from lack of a channel strategy and planning. And with a proper channel strategy, factoring and packaging allows many brands to more successfully navigate the crap dilemma.
Gotcha. What does crap actually stand for?
Good question. So it cannot realize a profit. So if a brand, CPG brand, has an item on the site that when you factor in all of the costs associated with the product for Amazon to fulfill and ship, if there's not enough margin there, Amazon will delist it from their site. Therefore, orders will stop being placed to said CPG.
So is this purely like a price premium that the consumer pays, or are there other things brands can do to stop this in the first place? Like, can they do better SEO strategies, better SEM strategies, or is it this really all about the value price to the consumer at the end of the day, and that's what results in crap?
No, that's a great question. It's certainly not just about value to the consumer. There's several levers that CPGs have to pull. When we look at search on Amazon, when we look at placement of product placement and where it lands on Amazon, when we look at AMS investments with brands and what keywords they own, all of those are factors to help a brand avoid crap. But a brand has high packaging cost, and a brand does not have a very through channel strategy, and a brand is not investing in AMS to rank for keywords, it will certainly be challenging, and brands will likely see lower average selling prices, which will likely result in crap.
So this word crap, right, on Amazon, does this happen like literally overnight? Is it something that happens over the course of 3 months, 6 months after you start listing your products and start selling it on the front? Like how and when does crap actually happen? Is it just something magical? I think you already said to us that it has to do with consumer value, but is it like an overnight thing?
No, it's certainly not. It's not an overnight thing. I think for executives, probably many that are watching this show or have this show forwarded from someone on their team, for executives that are not focused on Amazon or e-commerce daily, I think it would probably seem like a very out of nowhere, out of the blue dilemma. But for folks like us, for probably many of the folks that send us notes saying they get value from this show, it's not a surprise. It's a byproduct of longer tail decisions, such as packaging, such as architecture, price pack architecture and value, assortments, e-commerce packaging, as well as e-assortments to Amazon. Lack of those things will often lead to crap, but it's certainly not something that happens overnight.
So if it doesn't happen overnight and happens over the course of time, does that actually mean that when it happens, you don't fight it, you let it happen, or do you fight it?
So I think when brands face crap and it's meaningful and it's a byproduct in many cases of the assortment or the item was never really meant for e-commerce, and trying to fix in many cases items that were, for lack of a better term, hand-me-downs from other channels, it's a very costly Band-Aid. It's not a sustainably successful Band-Aid.
I think what I'm hearing you say is, if crap happens to a ASIN or a SKU, you have to accept it and not try to fight it. Is that what you're trying to
Correct. I would say it's absolutely. If an item craps out, oftentimes I would accept it in many cases and move on and optimize the rest of your assortment.
So obviously crap happens once an ASIN has been in the marketplace for a while on Amazon, right? But let's say you're launching a new innovation and it's day one. What can you do when you launch the innovation to make sure that that particular ASIN or SKU doesn't face crap someday?
There's several things that brands can do. We talked about it earlier, and we talked about it on many of our episodes. AMS investment, ranking for keywords for your innovations, highly critical to the success formula. When it comes to innovation launches, I would say one of the most critical pieces is significant and very surgical plans for AMS for search. That's probably one of the most critical pieces of advice I would provide to brands and CPG is ensure you have a very significant investment in AMS so you can rank for keywords in your space to support a successful launch of the innovation.
Gotcha. So the next one that came to my mind is, crap is an Amazon specific term. I mean, earlier you defined it for us as cannot realize any profit. And then you've demystified this for us and you've said kind of the reason why this happens in the first place is because the odds are that the SKUs that are getting crapped out are ones that are not built for online. What happens on other retail platforms? Let's say you're selling on massmerchandiser.com, drug.com, club.com. Is there like an equivalent of crap on those platforms, or does this only happen on Amazon?
No, there's certainly this issue titled Other Words exists in the market. I would say Amazon is probably the most prolific and most visible right now because in our industry, Amazon accounts for over 50% of e-commerce sales in the US. However, the problems associated with quote unquote crap on Amazon do exist in other retailers, and oftentimes many CPG don't realize that you cannot force fit items from your existing assortments and have a successful e-commerce business without some issues relating to similar crap-like challenges.
I think as we wrap up episode 13 for our viewers here on all things crap, my biggest takeaway from what I learned from a resident crap expert and wizard, Mr. Don himself,
right,
is that you have to start making SKUs for online.
Have to.
And there is no workaround for that. No. And force fitting in-store SKUs or other channel SKUs without a purposeful channel strategy is always a bad idea.
Right. And please, everyone out there that's watching this, that you're nodding your head, show this to your NPD group, show this to your chief marketing officer, because the third-party independent group is absolutely saying force-fitting assortments into e-commerce is not a way for success. Not having e-commerce specific packaging is not a way for success. If anything, you can have short-term bursts of revenue, but you won't have sustainable margin. You won't have the sustainable growth you need. And ultimately, the consumer, me and you as shoppers, our family members, all of us watching, we expect certain things when we order a product online, and you don't really care if it's a 15 color box that arrives to your door, if it's just a brown corrugate box. So I think I would say this episode is worthy of reshares to those in organizations that are struggling with this issue.
What a big another takeaway you kind of just dropped in there casually, man, which is, having grown up in this industry 2+ decades at this stage, and probably one of the industries that I would call close to my heart, my DNA, branding was everything. And if I heard you correctly, what you just told me as a consumer is, which is very true, because this is what happens in my own life. When I receive product, I go straight for the product. So adding costs, adding just equation to the P&L by trying to brand a box, the outer packaging, probably not the best return on investment for a manufacturer. And in fact, I think you're saying that may result in crap if you spend investment trying to actually brand the box, the outer packaging.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
That was our resident Amazon wizard here, Don, taking us through the avoid crap formula, or sometimes even saying accept crap when it happens. That is a wrap for episode 13. We will be back next week with episode 14 on Monday. But I want to leave y'all with this parting thought on episode 13, everything crap here. That is, what I'm learning from you is crap is really just delisting of a SKU. But what I find fascinating is the word delisting has existed universally across hundreds of retailers in the marketplace. How is it, in closing, Don, please tell us that one retailer alone has recoined the term from D-list to crap. I mean, that is like mind-boggling scale.
It's fascinating. I think, many of us work for CPGs, and there's many that get the digital components of the landscape and they understand it. But those that do not, those that are much further away from digital, that grew up in brick and mortar and stayed brick and mortar, the parallels to delisting assortments, I think, in some cases are not, they're not trying to connect the dots as being the same challenges because of a lack of understanding. But you laid it out very, very clear. These problems have existed for years. If a brand in CPG doesn't have a channel strategy, if a brand is over designing packaging, a brand's going to have margin challenges, and a brand's going to get delisted from retailer X, Y, or Z. So I think as the space evolves, over time, those in CPG, this will become a common skill set and understanding. But right now, Sri, I think a lot of people don't want to understand, because some people in CPG don't love e-commerce. So I think this is a lightning rod, a bit of a, we don't like e-commerce and the crap is always going to be a risk, so we're going to pivot and focus solely on brick and mortar. And you know what I feel about that? I think that's a grave mistake that will prevent many CPGs from long-term sustainable success.
We don't like e-commerce. I mean, I speechless, man. It's non-negotiable in 2019 and forward. Episode 14 will be here next week, and we have a special guest for you next week with episode 14, and that is the Chief Knowledge Officer of Kantar, the man himself, Mr. Brian Gildenberg, a close friend. We've spoken together in the industry, and his topic is a really amazing one, Dan. It is managing an e-commerce team like managing a teenager at home.
Can't wait.
See you next week on Monday.